Here's a quick lesson about simultaneous equations. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the two methods that you can use to do simultaneous manually. And then I'm also going to go through the good news is how to do them on the calculator. Now, the point about simultaneous equations is here we've got a system where we have two equations. Now, if we have two equations or two unknowns, then we'll need two equations. So if I wrote here that we have two unknowns, that means we need two equations, two unique equations to solve it. If we have three unknowns, then we're going to need three unique equations to solve it, and so on. And we can do this using simultaneous equations. Now, simultaneous equations generally refers to when we have two lines that are intersecting. So let me draw up some axes here, and let's just imagine they're perfectly straight. If we have the orange line, for example, no, that's not what I want. If we have an orange line like this, and then a pink line like this, the point where they meet is a point that we can solve using simultaneous equations. And that's the purpose of using simultaneous equations. It's to find where these 2 points meet. So here I have a system where one of the lines, 2x minus y equals 4, is actually shown in pink. So I'm going to put a pink circle around it. The other line, x plus 2y is negative 3, is shown in orange, and so I'll put an orange circle around that. So we know which line is which. Simultaneous equations will help us find out this point here, x and y, where they intersect. So the first method I can use is called the elimination method. And to use the elimination method, I need to get rid of an x or a y. Now to do that, my first equation, which is 2x minus y equals 4, I'll write that down. And my second equation is, let me get that right, shall I? 2x minus y equals 4. And my second equation is x plus 2y equals negative 3. Now my goal here is to either add or subtract these two equations together to get rid of an x or a y. But I can't do that yet. I need my coefficients to be the same. So I'm going to make a note of that so I know. I need my coefficients of either x or y to be the same. So that's my goal. So now what I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to double my whole first equation. So I'm going to multiply that by 2. And I'll get 4x minus 2y equals 8. So here we have double this, double 2x, I get 4x. Double negative y, I get negative 2y. Double 4, I will get 8. So that's how I will double this. And now you see I have a coefficient of 2 and a coefficient of 2 here. So if I write my original equation here, x plus 2y equals negative 3. Then what we tend to do is we'll number our equations so we know exactly what's going on. So I have equation 1 and equation 2 here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add them to get rid of the y's. So when I add equation 1 to equation 2, and I might write that down, so 1 plus 2, then what I'm going to get is 4x plus 1x gives me 5x. Negative 2y plus positive 2y gives me 0 y's. And 8 minus 3 is 5. And if 5x equals 5, then I know x equals 1. So that's my first answer. Now, the thing with simultaneous equations is this isn't all done now because I've got two unknowns, so I need to find two different numbers. I need to find an x and a y. So now I'll write when x equals 1, I'll use one of these equations to work out what y is. And it doesn't matter which one I use. So I'm going to use the first one. And I therefore get my first equation, 2x minus y equals 4, will become x equals 1. So therefore it becomes 2 times 1 minus y equals 4. So therefore 2 minus y equals 4. And I could put that into the calculator and solve it if I want to, or I can work it out myself and I find out that y is negative 2. So if x is 1 and y is negative 2, then the point of intersection will be at 1 and negative 2. And there's my answer to this system of simultaneous equations using the elimination method. The second method we can use is called the substitution method. And when we use the substitution method, we're looking for a different type of equation. So I'll write that down now. The substitution method. And the point of the substitution method is at some point in time, we want to get an equation that says x equals something or y equals something. We want to rearrange our equations so we get something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at my second equation, my orange equation. And if I subtract 2y from both sides, so let's write it down. My equation is x plus 2y equals negative 3. Now, if I subtract 2y from both sides, then I'm going to get an equation that says x equals negative 3 minus 2y. And this is now in this format, so this is what I'm looking for. And as we always do, I'm going to number my equations. So I'm going to call this equation 2. And my equation 1 is still my pink equation. So it's 2x minus y equals 4. That's my first equation. And I haven't done anything to that at all. Now, once I've got these two equations, what I'm going to do is wherever I see x, I'm going to write negative 3 minus 2y. And if I do that, then my equation number 1, let's actually write down exactly what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute equation 2 into equation 1. So therefore what I'm going to get is 2, and rather than x, I'm going to write this. So I'll do brackets, negative 3 minus 2y then minus y equals 4. So what I've done is 2, then my x is now minus 3 minus 2y, so 2x minus y equals 4. Then what I can do is I can use solve on the calculator if I want to work out what y is, or I can do it manually. And if I do it manually, I'm going to end up with negative 6 minus 4y minus y equals 4. Therefore, negative 5y equals 10 and y equals negative 2. Don't worry if you're a little bit uncomfortable doing that algebraically. From this step here, we can go to the calculator if necessary and do a solve to work out what y equals. Then once we know that y equals negative 2, what we'll do is we'll substitute y equals negative 2 into one of these equations. And of course the easiest one now is this equation here, because it already says x equals. So that will give me my answer straight away. So I'll do that. I'll substitute y equals negative 2 into equation 2. And what I get is therefore x equals -3 minus 2, and remember y is -2, so therefore x equals 1. And there are my two answers. Remember, I always need two answers for simultaneous equations. And have a look. X equals 1, x equals 1, which is what we worked out with the elimination method. And y is -2, and y is -2. So because they're the same, that is awesome. So that's how I manually use the substitution or the elimination method to calculate simultaneous equations. Now remember, you may have to do this by hand, but you can always solve using your calculator once you get an expression with just one unknown. But the final good news is that we can use our calculator to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use the calculator to solve exactly the same set of simultaneous equations, remembering we already know the answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the main screen, and I'm going to find in the keyboard section my simultaneous equations function. So in this keyboard section, you'll see this little dot here. There's two rectangles with a curly bracket, and I'm going to click that. Now that's if I have two simultaneous equations, I click it once. If I have three, I click it again and again until I have the right number of simultaneous equations. For this question, I have two simultaneous equations, so I'm just going to click it once, and I'm going to write in my two equations. So 2x minus y equals 4, and x plus 2y equals -3. Then over this side, I'm going to tell the calculator what I want the answers for. So it's going to be x and y. And then once I've done all of that, all I need to do is press enter, and it tells me that x is 1 and y is -2. So that means the point of intersection is the set of coordinates where x equals 1 and y is -2. And look, we've got the same answer for the same simultaneous equations done three ways. And if you have a choice and they don't stipulate which way to do it, the calculator is always going to be your best way to solve the simultaneous equations.